Hey guys, quick video on expanding binomials. Okay, so binomials are two terms. So as you can see, this is called expanding binomials because it's like you have two terms in each bracket and we want to expand them, which means we want to get rid of the brackets. So the reason for this, if you want a little background, is if we have like this situation over in the cloud land here, if we had 2 plus 1 in brackets times 3 minus 4, we could do that no problem. We could be like, oh yeah, we'll just do the brackets first because we always like to follow the rules of BEDMAS all the time. They rule our life in the math world. So we do brackets first. So that means we do the operations inside the bracket. So 2 plus 1 is 3. And 3 minus 4 is -1. And 3 times -1 is -3. Cool, so we can solve that quite easily. But as soon as you stick a variable in there, that ruins everything. Because you can't add 2x plus 1. You can't do 3x minus 5. You can't. They're not like terms. So you're stuck. And you could just leave it like that forever. But maybe that's a really unfortunate form you're dealing with. And you don't want brackets. So there's different needs for things as you go on in math. Sometimes you want things to be in brackets. Sometimes you don't. It just depends on the context. So we're dealing with things in brackets and we don't want them to be right now. So as you can see, if I have no variables, easy peasy. I just do the math and I get -3. But here's the cool thing. If you can't do the math, there's another way you can expand. And I'll just show you without using variables for the time being. So if you have this same situation, turns out since these two brackets are multiplying each other, you can actually just multiply everything in one bracket by everything in the other bracket and you'll get the same answer. So for example, I could start with my 2 here in the first bracket and I could actually multiply that 2 by everything in the second bracket. So if I do 2 times 3, that's 6. 2 times -4 is -8. And then if I move on to the 1, I just have to multiply everything in the second bracket by the 1. So 1 times 3 is +3, and 1 times -4 is -4. And then if I just add up all those things, 6 take away 8 is -2, plus 3 is 1, 1 minus 4 is -3. So you can see how I get the same exact answer. It's just like way more work. So instead of doing each bracket, now I have to like go through and multiply everything in the first bracket by everything in the second bracket. So it's like a lot more work, but it will help us when we have these things called variables. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do it with variables. Okay, so same situation, but now we can't add what's in the brackets because they're not like terms. So we're going to start with the first term, 2x, and we're going to multiply it by every single thing in the second bracket. Okay, when you get to grade 10, there's going to be some teachers that like this acronym FOIL. Like it's not my favorite, so I'm not teaching it that way. So you can ask your grade 10 teacher about that and then say, you can do it better. Okay, so pick the first term in the first bracket, 2x, and then multiply it by each term in the second bracket. So 2x times 3x is 6x to the power of 2. Remember when you multiply variables together, like x times x, you got to remember your exponent laws. So those x's technically have an exponent of 1 on them. And our exponent law for multiplication is to add the exponents together. So that's why we got x squared. Okay, then we have to do 2x times -5, which would be -10x. Okay, so that's the first term. And then we move on to the plus 1. So now we have to take the plus 1 and we have to multiply it by every single term in the second bracket. So +1 times 3x would be +3x. And +1 times -5 would be -5. And that's it. So you multiply the two binomials together. And now all we have to do is collect our like terms. And it looks like just our two middle ones. So -10x plus 3x. So we can write 6x squared minus 7x minus 5. Okay, so the reason I don't really love FOIL, so I'll just tell you. FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, last. So it's a way to remember like the order that you do things. So first, meaning you multiply the first terms in each bracket together, so 2x times 3x. Outside, meaning you multiply the two outside terms by each other, so 2x times -5, like we did. Inside, meaning you multiply the two inside terms, so 1 and 3x. And last, meaning you multiply the two last terms, 1 times -5. So I personally just don't love acronyms that don't work for everything. So FOIL, I feel like it works great for expanding binomials, but what if you got a couple of trinomials you want to expand? Like all of a sudden, you need a new acronym. So if you just remember, you multiply everything in the first bracket by everything in the second bracket, it doesn't matter how many terms you have in each bracket, it's gonna work every time. So start with the first term and multiply it by everything, and then do the next term and multiply it by everything. And then you're good. And the whole point of this is just to get rid of the brackets. In case, like, who knows what the context is, but this is just one little skill that you're gonna need that's supposed to be taught in grade 10, but some of the enriched teachers said that they teach it in grade 9. So there you go. Let's try one more example. Last one. Okay, so say you had x minus 2 times 4x minus 9. So there's your binomials. And you know they're binomials because they have two terms in each bracket. All right, so we're gonna use our, start with this guy, x, and multiply it by everything in the second bracket. So x times 4x would be 4x squared. X times -9 would be -9x. Then you move on to the -2, and we're gonna multiply that by everything in the second bracket. So -2 times 4x would be -8x. And -2 times -9 would be +18. And then you just collect your like terms. So your two middle guys. So we leave the 4x squared, and then -9x take away 8x would be -17x plus 18. And that's it. Final answer. So you can see that your two binomials that you multiplied turned into a trinomial. Cool. Okay, so that's one skill that you need for grade 10 math. Whoops. And it's called expanding binomials.